You're listening to Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress podcast. I'm your host, Nadine Bozeman. In this podcast, I'm sharing business systems and strategies specifically tailored to the bridal sewing industry so you can build your own modern and profitable bridal alterations business. Join me as I also get to chat with fellow seamstresses and share their personal success stories. I'm so glad you're here and that we can grow together in this unique trade. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress. I am so excited for this interview. So if you don't yet know Anna, she is the seamstress behind the Heart-Centered Seamstress, and she's also a great friend of mine. And I love how she's integrated like two life passions into one business. And recently she started offering some of these services, the heart-centered services, to wedding pros too. So we'll tap into that a little bit later. But welcome, Anna. I'm so excited to hear your story and have you share it with our little sewing listening community.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. My heart is breaking.
Yay! Okay, so for those listeners who are unfamiliar with the Heart-Centered Seamstress, can you tell us like just how you started it, how long you've been sewing? We'll get into kind of like the nitty-gritty details later, but give us an overview of how you even entered the sewing world.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I wish that this was a short story. So I will try to make it as short and sweet as possible because a lot of my personal and professional experiences over the years have built upon each other and are very much threaded in what I get to do today and what I offer. So let's take it back to 6, 7-year-old Anna. My late grandmother taught me how to fix a hole in my sweater on my sleeve on myself and by myself. And I was like, this is the coolest thing. It was so empowering at the time to be like, I fixed this, I did this, what else can I do?
Mhm.
So from there, I just started experimenting and tinkering with my own clothes and alterations. And it was never something that I genuinely considered could be a career at that point for me.
Mhm.
So when I was in high school, senior year, I really wanted to go into the medical field. And I'm not making this up. I wanted to be a cardiologist and fix broken hearts. That's what I would tell
Oh my goodness.
people. That's what I would tell people. So looking back, it just kind of tickles me how, in a way, I'm still kind of doing that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a dress doctor. So I didn't know what I wanted to do or commit to at 18 years old going
Mhm.
through college. There were just so many things, so many interests of mine, and I had always been a creative person. So, what I ended up committing to, I went to the University of Arizona, graduated with a degree in business administration, marketing, and global business because at the time I thought whatever I choose to do, I want to have that background. I want to be that business savvy and aware of how to run one day. So right out of college, well, I let me go back to an experience that I had in college that was really profound for me. I had the opportunity to live and study abroad in London for some time. And I was able to intern for Lucy Choi, who is the niece of Jimmy Choo. And
Wow.
let me tell you, I don't know how I landed that. That was such an incredible experience to work with her and learn from her. But what I took away the most, she had her first child and launched her own luxury shoe line in the same year. So
Wow.
she was doing it all. She didn't want to ride the coattails of her famous uncle. And she was really passionate about not just her shoes, but the way they made women feel in her shoes. And she was very transparent, and her brand was all about craftsmanship and comfort and character. So just getting to see
The
that,
integrity behind a brand
the
like that.
integrity behind
Mhm.
it, yes. She could have been in it for the money. She could have been doing it for the name, but that's not why she was doing it. She was doing it for heart, and that was really refreshing for me to see.
Mhm.
So, right out of college, I ended up taking a job at a wedding venue here in Arizona. And I coordinated the weddings, I directed the weddings. I absolutely loved that experience. But that led to something else. I'm like, I love this. I'm learning about this. I get to see everything that goes into a wedding day, but there's something else. And
Mhm.
it actually was kind of a little bit of a game for me, getting to know my brides and spending so much time with them. I'm like, what do I think they would choose to wear on their wedding day? Like, what is them? Like, what would match them? So that's just a fun little silly thing that I would do. But that actually led to an opportunity to be a bridal stylist. So you can kind of see how
Mhm. There's a
it's lead.
progression.
There's a progression there. We're getting somewhere. And that was such a great experience for many reasons because it taught me the art of communication
Mhm.
and active listening, not only with words, but with body language
Yeah. Yeah.
and emotions. And really being tuned in to this person that we only have 90 minutes together to find her in a
Yes.
dress
Yep.
and bring that out of her. So I worked at an off the rack boutique.
Hmm.
So we would have a lot of sample dresses coming in, a lot of overstock. Sometimes they might have needed a little bit of fixing before we could put them out on the floor. And I was like, hey, I can do that.
Yeah.
If you want me to, I'm happy to. And then that turned into doing very small, very minor alterations for the brides of the shop.
Hmm.
So then I got a wild hair and I was like, I really want to be a bridal seamstress. So I just kind of started taking on clients. And mind you, I was very much self taught
Hmm.
at that point in time. So very, very low number of clientele, but I was
Right.
still
Right.
building my experience and getting
Right.
that
Just
behind me.
taking what you felt comfortable, like that you could handle.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it was mostly friends, people that I knew.
Hmm.
And I was very honest and I never wanted to overpromise, right?
Right.
So that turned into being found on Instagram by a local bridal seamstress that owned her own shop. And from there, I actually have the title of like official bridal seamstress. And it's where I really perfected the technique and really got to glean the behind the scenes of it all, what goes into the production of alterations,
Mhm.
how simple it is not. It's not simple.
Right.
And I think that job really, that's where I got burnt out.
Hmm.
That's where the burnt out really kicked in. Did
Hmm.
I notice it right away? No. Am I glad that I did and checked in with myself? Yes,
Yeah.
because that's when everything changed.
Hmm.
And at
Because
the
how long were you
time,
there?
I was there for about a year.
Oh,
I was
okay.
there for close to a year. And my day consisted of sewing in the morning, and then I would have back to back to back to back to back to back to back, like literally on an assembly line of brides. So no wonder when I go home and I feel like a prune and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, why am I not enjoying this? Why am I not, I love what I do, but I'm not loving it right now.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what needs to change? One, how can I take care of myself? And two, how can I take care of my brides?
Hmm.
Because when I was seeing them at such a high volume, I'm a very empathic and sensitive person, but I was missing the connection. I felt
Hmm.
like I just had to treat them as a number,
Yeah.
as just another
And that is
bride and
a huge
never.
piece of why so many of us come into this industry is like
Hmm.
that connection piece. Like, you know,
Absolutely.
you get to like build this relationship. That's totally what drew me into bridal sewing was like, oh, I get to see you more than once. Okay, you're not just dropping off a bag of clothes and
Hmm.
leaving. Like, so that's a big
Hmm.
piece. And that was cool that you were able to recognize that only being there for a year and like identifying what the
Hmm.
issue was and finding a solution.
Yes, we need to check in with ourselves
Yeah.
very often. So that led to me stepping away from that job, and I enrolled in a holistic healing arts degree program out here in Tempe, Arizona. And I wanted to do it all. I wanted to jump right in. I've always had a passion for wellness, different modalities. So I was like, bring it on. Let's get a little taste of everything, see what resonates, learn about a different way of being, the energetic way of being, and that form of anatomy and how we connect interpersonally in that way. And I really wanted to build that foundation for myself. And then, oh, guess what? A couple months later, the world shuts down,
Oh,
pandemic.
okay. Okay. Yep.
So I continued my education mostly online, which was
Mhm.
still great to be in that bubble, that space of a healing arts
Mhm.
program. Well, everything else is happening. Like there's so much noise and chatter in the
Yeah.
outside world. And I'll tell you, I felt like a bit of an outlier at this school. And that's because coming in, like I was a bridal seamstress. That's
Mhm.
what I knew I wanted to do. However, you've got your herbalists, you have your yoga teachers, like people focusing in different areas. But the great thing about this school is that it was very entrepreneurial minded and supportive. And the intention was, okay, you can be your own business owner and we're going to support you through that. So on my half birthday, the year 2020, yes, we do celebrate those milestones. I treated myself to a Reiki session just to remove some blockages, get some energy flowing, take care of myself in that way. And I had one of the best shower thoughts that I've ever had. And that is the name, the Heart-Centered Seamstress.
Mhm.
And once I heard it in my mind and in my heart, I couldn't let it go. I knew that was it. It sparkled, it lit me up. Like I just got all of the tingly feelings. It's like when you say yes to your dress, it's like,
Yeah.
that's it. That's the
Yeah.
moment. So everything that I've done since then has been in service of the Heart-Centered Seamstress. And just a fun little fact for you, little an energy anatomy lesson, if you will. We have 7 energy centers in our body known as chakras, and translated it means wheel or disc. So it's literally a moving ball of energy that runs down our center. And out of these 7 chakras, the heart chakra is literally the center of them all. So to me, I get to bring that through my work, extend it out through my hands. And I'm really putting love and attention and heart not only into the alterations, but I'm also doing that with my brides and seeing them as a whole person.
Yeah.
So that today is what I offer as the Heart-Centered Seamstress, combining bridal alterations with wellness and relaxation services to
Yes, I
empower
love that. And I'm
stress-free
sure
brides to be.
such like a breath of fresh air when you're working with clients that have so many vendors that are trying to balance like this is one of the most stressful. It shouldn't be because it should be
It
fun and
shouldn't
playful. I was
be.
just talking to a bride
Mm-hmm.
about this yesterday. She's like she was having like a party with her planning and I'm like so nice to see that because some brides really get very
Yeah.
stressed and it's like sad to see this awesome opportunity to enjoy something just kind of go to
Mm-hmm.
waste. So
Yeah.
as the business was growing and you're like okay this is working the clients are coming in what did you want to prioritize for your clients to experience? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? Like heart-centered
Mm-hmm.
seamstress in a
Mm-hmm.
fitting session or whatever.
I think first and foremost, I've always wanted to provide a safe space, meaning they know that it's going to be comfortable and private while they're here, but also that they can be themselves while they're here. And for me, working on this dress, like it's so important to me that they get to be themselves
Mhm.
because I can see technically how the dress might need to fit them, but I don't know what they're feeling. I don't know what's going through their mind. So it's really important to build a relationship when they're here, not even just for their first fitting, but at their virtual fitting, which if we want to touch on that, we can. But it's really the whole experience through and through. I'm listening to you. I'm
Mhm.
validating you. If you're having a bad day, let's sit and talk about it. Like, we've got some
Yeah.
time for during our fittings to, if things are coming up, if emotions are coming up, even if it's not centered around the wedding, I want the brides to know that they are loved and cared for, and they can express themselves however they walk in.
And hearing you say that, it's like, okay, well, we all do that. We all want to do that. But that, what you just described, takes intention and
Mhm,
time and
mhm,
planning. Because if you get to a place where you are like overbooked or
mhm,
you're stressed, you can't serve people the way that you just described. You're thinking about like, okay, so my next client comes in 20 minutes. So,
mhm,
okay, like you can't even allow time to just like sit with the feelings or talk through whatever is the stressful experience, you know? So to get
mhm.
to that point that you just described, like this lovely, you know, appointment time that doesn't feel like an appointment, it feels like, oh, she's listening to me. It takes so much planning on the back end. So how has
Yes.
that affected your, so for listeners who are like, okay, I need technical numbers here, how does that
Mhm,
affect how many clients you accept? Have you like intentionally
mhm.
like lowered your monthly quota, or how does that work?
So I, yes, being the business minded degreed person that I am, I know that's very important, right? And I will say, as the business has grown and it has scaled to a greater degree, I honestly haven't gotten to that point yet where I feel that burnout, where I feel like, oh, I might need to take a step back.
Mhm.
And to be completely honest with you, and you just touched on it, and I was like, yes, let's talk about this. It's really it starts from us as the business owner. As you know, if you're the one and only in the business, great. If you have a team, it's still you. So what you do behind the scenes, brides aren't getting to see that. What you do behind the scenes, how you're taking care of yourself, how you're loving on yourself, that's going to come through in the FaceTime that you have with them, and they're going to get to feel it. And I think this is a time when brides, or at least what I've experienced, they become very hypersensitive. It's
Mhm.
like these bridal spidey senses turn on, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel like they can feel like any nuance, like any change in you. Like if you're having a bad day. So I'm not perfect. I've had days where I'm like, oh, I have to see these brides. But then I remember I get to see these brides, and most times I end up feeling so much better after I've connected with them, or life things happen. So
Right.
I think the most important takeaway, or what I would want our listeners, our community to know, is that you shouldn't have to sacrifice yourself and your well-being to make another number,
Mhm.
to obtain another goal.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, but how do you want it to happen? Do you want to get to that goal, that finish line, as a shell of yourself, or do you want to be doing the work consistently throughout and come out the other end still as your whole self,
Mhm.
right? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes, and I think we can kind of fall into the trap of like, okay, I've met this goal, so now it's just time to hit the next one,
Mhm.
and just
Mhm.
roll into the next expectation that we set for ourselves instead of like being content with where we are. And I know I've struggled with
Mhm.
that because it's like, ooh, I remember the rush of the first couple years of like my business growing and like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then like, ooh, like then moving on, okay, the podcast is growing and these other goals. And it's like, I could just keep setting these new expectations for myself or like trying new things, or I could
Mhm.
like enjoy what this is and also enjoy
Mhm.
life that
Mhm.
I've built this for my life, right? I mean, right? Like to support the lifestyle that I want instead of just
Absolutely.
constantly reaching for the next thing. So,
Mhm.
I like how you pointed that out. Like it's okay to have a realistic expectation of like what that monthly workload looks like and
Mhm.
there, like sit with it. There's no shame,
Mhm.
you know, when we kind of see like, well, other people are doing more things, or, you know, we hop
Mhm.
on social media and we see like a highlight reel. I was just talking to somebody else about this, so it's like on top of mind. But it can be so easy to just think you need to be doing more, or, you know, in your case, taking on
Absolutely.
more clients or like raising whatever that monthly income will be. And then you can lose sight of like, wait a minute, the reason I came into this heart-centered seamstress gig, like
Mhm.
this North Star, you know what I mean? And like you don't want to depart too far from it. So you kind of already touched on this, but like when did you realize that your love for like holistic health could be a brand pillar? Like,
Mm-hmm.
was it with your previous employer, like, okay, this is something that I actually want to prioritize if I were to do this on my own? Or was it once you were working with your own clients and you realized this could be before the shower thoughts, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I that's a great question. Let me think back a bit because I definitely remember when I was working for the bridal seamstress shop, I would carry crystals on me, like I would have healing mantras and vibrations, sound healing playing on the speakers. I was sewing, like I really just wanted to create that environment that was wholesome and it felt good walking in and it felt good for me to be in there because I without going into too many details, I've seen a lot of issues within the wedding industry as a whole.
mhm,
And I think for me, seeing how stress was the common thread, and don't get me wrong, I still have my struggles with stress and
mhm.
anxiety and overwhelm and overthinking. So it was just as much taking care of me as it is wanting to be able to do this for brides. So it felt kind of like, why not?
Mhm.
It's kind of weird. I feel like it's still seen as a little woo-woo of these kinds of alternative modalities. However, I will say by leaning into that part of myself, it's really opened the door and brought in the clients that are needing that. And that's been really exciting to see. And I think that's something that, you were talking about the comparison of it all. And it's hard to get in to not get yourself in that trap. It's hard to not put yourself in a box of what a bridal seamstress should be.
Right.
Your version of a bridal seamstress is who you are. So, who are you? Why are you doing this? Why are you offering what you are offering? And sooner or later, those clients that you're putting the energy out to attract, they'll find you.
They'll find you. Yes. And
Hmm.
if they don't find you, they're not meant for you.
They're
Like,
not meant for you.
I don't know where I first heard this, but once I learned that not everybody will want to work with you,
Hmm.
that is just so freeing because it's like, okay, well, I don't have to win everybody over. Like that goes for brides and that also goes for like our membership. Like I'm not for everybody. And it's like, instead of feeling like, oh, not everybody wants me, it's like, oh, good. That just like releases you from having to like prove
Hmm.
yourself to people that just aren't your people. And it's like, okay,
Hmm.
it just kind of allows you to let go. So you
It
already
allows you to let
on
go.
this. Yeah. Some
And
of our
I think I
listeners,
also want to say, as that keeps you in a lack mentality when you're
mhm,
saying, like, you know, why aren't these brides coming to me? Why don't
right,
I have greater income? Like the thoughts that you think are genuinely going to manifest in your reality. So it's important to keep positive, focus on the positives, even if they're small wins. They're wins.
mhm.
I drank a lot of water today. Go me. Right? Let's celebrate that,
Totally. Yes.
especially here in Arizona.
Yeah,
So
and if
just
you're thinking of the people who aren't choosing you or choosing, the seamstress next door instead of you, your
mhm.
clients that are working with you are missing out on you because you're putting all of your
Yes,
thoughts and energy into like people who aren't picking you and it's like, for what? So, yeah, it's
absolutely.
definitely it's freeing to all parties involved.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Let that go.
let me pick your business degree brain here because
Sure.
we hear, if you scroll Instagram, let's say for marketing or business tips, everybody's saying you need to have, your little, I say niche, but I feel like to use the phrase, the riches are in the niches. You have to say niche, but I pronounce it niche.
Yes.
Anyway, so everybody's
It's
trying to think,
regional. I don't think
yeah.
one way is wrong. So whatever feels good to you.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking, I love that Anna has like the heart-centered seamstress and she's so sold on like her mission to serve brides in this way. How do I find what my niche is?
Hmm.
How would you encourage somebody to lean into just what their thing is, their
Hmm.
thing, quote unquote, that's going to help them stand out in their own market?
Hmm. That's a great question. And I think It's really unique to the individuals. And I I think the biggest piece of advice that I have is not to overpromise, not to say yes to things that you should really say no to just for the sake of the job.
Hmm.
Um, for me, it really started small. I was offering yoga meditations, yoga nidra, tarot readings even, and I just put it out there. I just put it out there. So for somebody that's finding their niche, whatever that is, I would say look look at those in your community who are doing similar work, but also look at yourself, make a list. I'm very much a list person. Write it out, get it out. It's in there somewhere. It's already in you. You already know what it is. And like we already touched on this, it's not the looking elsewhere that you're going to find the answers. It's looking at yourself and what your strengths are. Even if you have one strength, even if it's just one, it's a strength and it can be built upon. So don't get so focused on everything else. Really narrow it down to just one thing, I would say. I think that's my point is focus on the one thing, and that's going to lead you into the next steps of the next thing and
Hmm.
the next thing and the next thing. And sooner or later, you're going to sit back and be like, oh my gosh, when did this happen? I'm offering so many things. I love everything that I'm doing. And I
Yeah.
feel like I can do it because it's authentically me.
Hmm.
And authenticity is a huge part of that. And again, that translates how brides are going to feel when they work with you. You know, is she doing this just because she wants the glory and satisfaction, or, you know, just sees me as another client? Or is she doing this because that is really what her passion is,
Right. Oh,
right?
100%.
So whatever that is for you, just find the one thing. Start with the one thing, and that can absolutely be built upon.
Mhm. You'll hear that phrase maybe with different words in like business conversation of the importance of just being known for one thing as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to trying to be known for like all these other things, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if somebody thinks of your name, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Like for listeners, it's like, well, bridal seamstress. Okay, I get it. But you might be the one that they think of when they want to take their gown and turn it into, their daughter's, I don't know, or what do
Christening dress,
well, I'm like, whatever they
bridal
think of in
robe,
the hospital, put the
whatever they
hospital
think.
in. I don't know. I don't have kids, but there are things to do with wedding dresses for babies. I don't know. I
Yes,
mean, you could be the person that comes to mind for reinventing the grandma's dress or
yes.
creating beautiful veils. Like it can, you don't
Hmm.
have to reinvent the wheel here. And you
Correct.
also don't have to offer all these zillion different things. And I'm also a designer and I'm also a bridal seamstress and I also do this. And it's like, you can just do one thing and do it really well. And I love how you said naturally other things will come from that, but to not put too much pressure on yourself to be like different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's okay. If it's
Mhm.
just one thing and you're great at it, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love how you've merged two loves into one business. That's so cool. And when I first started
Thank
Sweet
you.
Francis, I know a lot of listeners already know this, but I didn't have enough income for the whole year. It was like, I'm talking about like my first like 2 or 3 years doing bridal, and there was like a definite dropout, around here, like October through March. Like that was my slow season. Now my slow season is like, I'd say like November through December, and then it picks back up, whatever. And so to supplement that, I had this retail side of the business where I'm like, okay, well, I knit, I'll make some knit hats. I did knit mittens and I had like flannel scarves. That's when like flannel blanket scarves were like really cool. Sadly,
Cute. I
they're
love
not the
that.
rage anymore, so I can't get away with, selling those quickly, but it was just fun and it's something that I love to do. It was like a crafty thing that I love to do, watching Netflix, just knitting basic floppy hats. And no, at the time it was like the more like fitted hats were the rage. And then anyway, we don't need to go into the fashion cycle of knit hats, but it was
I'm curious, but yeah, we can save that for a later date.
but it was just like a really fun, I didn't have to think too much about it. I wasn't like poring over how do I make more money or what do I come up with to sell? It just was easy. And then there
Mm,
was also a time where I had to retire that part of the business because it wasn't
mhm,
serving me anymore and it became more stressful than helpful. But then, of course, there was a point where it's like, okay, this isn't serving the business anymore, so I have to cut it out. So kind of being fluid. And I love how you mentioned making a list because starting
mm,
with a good old fashioned list of what you could offer in addition to bridal alterations or what could just make your alterations experience stand out a little bit better. Like just write it down, see how it feels once it's on
mhm.
paper. You're making
I
it
want
sound
to,
easy, so thank you.
it's not, spoiler alert, it's not. It becomes easy when you sit down and devote the time to
Mhm,
do it.
mhm.
It'll become easy. And I think that's the most rewarding part is when you're faced with a challenge, but you accept it. And then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That wasn't as hard as I thought. Why
yeah.
was I thinking that this would be? But what I want to say about the list, what I really want to share is a little mental hack, I guess, that's really helped me this whole entire season. Because yes, the lists are great, but sometimes I get a little like overly excited. I'm like, I have all this energy. I'm going to do this, 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 this. Instead of calling it my to-do list, I've started calling it my ta-da list.
Oh,
So every time I accomplish a task, no matter what it is, if I get everything or almost nothing done, I celebrate with a little ta-da. And that I think just adds like a little sparkle and a
that is so
little
fun.
extra joy, even if the thing is not a fun task.
Yeah.
But I'm such a huge advocate for, little things that are gonna help you.
Mhm,
So when like when you said when it gets difficult, it can feel easy.
mhm. And I love how I have Fall Fest in my mind because I'm putting all those final details together, but we're gonna open up Fall Fest with a chat about like closing the loop, right? And like we
Mm,
have all these like open tabs in our minds and like how to
mhm.
close those tabs up before opening new ones. And so I love how you mentioned the to-do list because I love writing things down of what I want to accomplish. And then the worst feeling is like I look back and I'm like, I got nothing done. Or there's no satisfaction of like, checking things off the list. So I learned this from my coach, Stephanie. No, you didn't meet Stephanie Booth. Okay. Next
No,
retreat.
I haven't.
You would love
Next
her.
retreat.
And so she taught me this really great skill of just at the end of the day, instead of writing down everything you want to get done for tomorrow, write down what you accomplished today. And like you
Mhm.
said, you can include the water intake. You know what I mean? But it's just
Yeah.
like training your brain that like, okay, you do get stuff done. You're not a loser. You don't have all these like open tabs that like never gets closed. Like just recognizing all the little things that you accomplish. And what you may sense with a pattern of writing down things that you do, you might sense a pattern of like what it is that you're doing, maybe not even cognitively, like it's just kind of like part of your daily habit, or how are you
Mhm.
rides in addition to just sewing the thing,
Mhm.
take a little bit of inventory might do you better service than you think. So
Absolutely.
I mean, and if you're
Snaps for
listening and
that.
you're like, "Oh, this is my little niche," let us know because we're here for you. We're here to cheer you on. So, can you share some wins, like personal wins, or not? I shouldn't use the word wins. Maybe like rewards. Like, what have been rewards that you've seen as the heart-centered seamstress? Favorite moments with clients. It can be from this past season or whatever.
Yeah, I that's probably the toughest question that you've asked me because fortunately there are just so many. I think for myself as the owner of this business, taking it on myself to redesign, relaunch, tailor my website at the beginning of this year, that was a huge passion project and that ended up taking a lot more energy than I thought it would.
Mhm.
So to have that out in the world and done, complete, and reflecting how the business has grown now has been a massive reward. And I think just seeing the business grow and grow each and every season. And I'll tell you, even though I have that marketing background, it's not something that I'm obsessing over. I'm a very traditional person when it comes to that kind of marketing. So yes, I have my Instagram. That's my only form of social media right now with the business. And that works for me because
Mhm.
that's as much as I can manage and also have fun with.
Right.
However, it's been rewarding to feel the organic growth and word of mouth. And,
That's like the
if
best
my
thing, right?
that's the best part. And I always think, if Instagram were to go away tomorrow, if I had no control over, I don't have control over this platform, right? Like it could go away
Mhm.
tomorrow. Like what do I have control over? And that's how I make people feel. It's how I conduct my business. It you are your biggest marketer, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So hearing uh, reviews from past brides and clients, getting referrals for new brides and clients from, a family member of so and so, or I was a bridesmaid for so and so's wedding, and blah, blah, blah. That is the most rewarding part of all of this. And I always say, I very rarely wear makeup during fittings. And if I do, it's all waterproof because I just get so emotional and misty eyed and overjoyed. It's like the day that that doesn't happen with my brides, like that's probably when I should retire. Like
Mhm.
this work in and of itself is so rewarding. And just to share quickly a couple of ones that are really stand out for me. I just had a bride get married this past weekend, so congratulations. And I started working with her in June on her dress. And the closer we got to the wedding, we were about a month out, and she comes for a fitting, and come to find out she lost her father in April of
Mm,
this year. So I had only started meeting with her about 2 months after such a
wow.
huge life event. And she finally opened up about it. And I said, "Well, how are we going to honor dad? What can we do?" She's like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that." But that, like, the creativity started flowing, and she ended up I'm like, "Bring me one of his favorite shirts. That's your homework." So she brought me one of his favorite polos, and bonus points because it was her something blue. And she
Mm.
gave me complete creative freedom over it. And here I go. She gave me complete creative freedom. So what felt right, and I literally had the goosebumps as I was working with this shirt from her dad. Like I felt it. I felt the love. I ended up creating a heart patch from his shirt, taken from where his heart would be as he's wearing the shirt.
Mhm.
And I sewed it in the skirt of her dress on the left hand side. So not only is it in line with her heart, it's like he was walking her
Mhm.
down the aisle. And that was one moment where I just sit back and I go, whoa, that was big.
Mhm.
That was probably one of the highlights of the alterations experience for her, I hope,
Yeah, yeah.
getting to include that and for me getting to facilitate that. So that is one of my highlights from this past season. But then I have to share a horror story.
Oh, goody.
I've got to balance it out. So I this was oh my gosh, this was last April. Last April, I'm at the hair salon treating myself, and in comes sat next to me a bride. She's there for her hair trial. I'm doing my thing. I've got my laptop. I'm doing some work, but my ears pick up when I hear I'm getting married on Saturday, and I haven't been in my dress or heard from my bridal seamstress since January. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. Right. She's getting married on Saturday. It's Monday of this week, and she hasn't heard from or seen her dress or bridal stylist since January. There was no affiliation with
Okay.
this bride prior. She was just, walked in like the alterations gods and goddesses sent her in to sit next to me. And I was like, "Hi, I'm Anna, the Heart-Centered Seamstress. We've got a problem." So I don't think I said exactly that because I didn't want to like freak her
Yeah.
out even more. Like she was already, I could tell, like really stressed out about it, like as she should be.
That's
So I
great.
encouraged her. She texted her seamstress right away as I was there with her in the shop. I gave her my information and I said, "You go get that dress as soon as you can. You try it on as soon as you can. If you need me, you let me know." She messaged me the next day, like all capital letters, like, I'm so upset. The seamstress is telling me that nothing can be done. It's like, okay, bring it tomorrow. I have an open day. She brings the dress, and this dress was horrendous. The previous seamstress who promoted that she did bridal made, I can't even begin, like, I'm fumbling over my words because where do I begin? She created seams where they should not have been and told her, I can't fix that. There were like literally jagged cuts inside the dress, and she was still kind of falling out of the top of the dress. So she came in for a fitting. I think I clocked 8 hours of work in one day and one night. So this was on Wednesday. She comes back Thursday, gets in the dress. It's perfect. We don't even need our Friday fitting. And she gets married on Saturday.
Oh
And
my gosh.
that is still one of the biggest.
You're
It
flushed.
I know. I get so enraged just like thinking about that this is still happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm yelling at you now. Let's bring it down a bit. But that's why I think it's so important to, one, do your research, two, work with somebody that you feel comfortable and confident with working with for something so important and so special. And, I'm not saying the bride is at fault at all. Like, she's never done this before. How is she going to know? But that ties back into what we were talking about. If you have one strength and you're promoting that one strength, and that is what that bride needs, guess who she's going to?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. That still makes my blood boil.
That's terrifying. And like, yeah, I think last summer was the record of how many dresses came to me that I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many that
You've
need to
got to
be fixed.
fix. Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of like posting about it. I don't share that kind of stuff. I mean, yes, I'll share with some friends, but it's not like,
Hmm.
because there's always a person who's behind that work. And I do feel like we never know what the backstory is, right? I mean, I don't
Correct.
know what the backstory is to have those jagged edges inside of a dress that you're just describing, but like, I don't know. I always feel like you kind of want to give the benefit of the doubt and not put somebody on blast, like on a public
Hmm.
platform. But I will say last year was like this record of like, oh my gosh, like
Hmm.
it was a lot to fix here.
I have no idea. I will say I have no idea who that bridal seamstress is. I don't
Yeah.
need to know, nor do
Right.
I think I should know. And fortunately, I haven't had too many fixes that I've had to do from other seamstresses.
Yeah.
But I will say I have shared that on my social media because I think for people who are newly engaged or don't know where to start, I
Yeah.
think
What could
that's
happen?
very enlightening of this is what you need to be looking for. This is how you need to be vetting.
Yeah. Like this is a possibility if we make the wrong decision. So make sure you're going to a specialist, even though, yeah, no, the dresses that I saw, well, one came from a specialist, but the others came from a
Hmm.
general tailor. But the specialist, I was like, oh my gosh, how'd this happen?
Hmm.
Okay.
But you're right. You never know what's happening in somebody's life.
Yeah.
And I think transparency is very important because we are human. We
Mhm.
have lives. I mean, it's not like we're just hunched over a sewing machine all the time, even though it's most of the
You interact
time.
with each other. Yeah.
We do other things. We leave our houses.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate this conversation so much, and I just appreciate like yeah, just what you bring to the community. I know that you and I have had conversations, that haven't been recorded, just about the importance of not only how we treat our brides, but how we're treating each other as seamstresses. And we're such a little community. Like there's only so many of us. And so like how like the words that we use about each other or like with each other or how we treat one another in our little space, I think is so important. So I appreciate how you just put a lot of emphasis on how you treat people because it has meaning. And I think we've both in our own experiences seen like the positive and negatives of both of those things. So I appreciate your light in the community. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be part of this community. And I say, we're not extinct as bridal seamstresses, but we are definitely a rare breed.
Mhm.
And I would love to think that, we're we're setting the standard for the next generation of bridal
Mhm.
seamstresses for young girls to say, I can do this one day. And I'll tell you, I've had many brides and lots of mothers comment like, "Oh, you're not what I thought you would be as a bridal seamstress." And I'm like, "I'm not that 80-year-old Polish woman yet. I'm lucky if I still am doing this." But it's just so refreshing to see, and it's so important that we have this solid community with each other and lift us up as women.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's like a responsibility that we take on when we're like trying to just refresh a community like this or bring in the next generation. It's like, and how are we encouraging each other to treat each other? Like that's part of the
Hmm.
responsibility, like to, set the tone or like
Hmm.
raise the standard here. So what is your, since this is Secrets of Brow Seamstress, what is your best secret as a business owner or as a seamstress?
Hmm. So I think I might have touched on this a little bit earlier. We were talking about rest, but what I
Mhm.
really wanted to share is rest is so important. It's not necessarily a secret, but I think the truth of it is we often consider rest to be the reward.
Mm,
And
mhm.
I am here to shatter that completely. Rest is not the reward. Rest is what has to come first for you to be able to receive and enjoy the rewards. So, really, really want to drive that one home. Rest, take care of yourself. It's great to have the hustle and bustle. However, that needs to be compensated with your rest, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like for you. I know I certainly enjoy other creative projects that aren't bridal. Like I love painting, I love sketching, I love drawing, like just to keep those the
Yeah.
energy, the creativity going. That to me is a form of rest.
Mhm.
Or doing nothing, and that's great. It's great to do nothing. I always say we're not human doings, we're human beings.
Yeah.
Let that one simmer.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the serious secret that I wanted to share is rest is not the reward.
I love that. I'm gonna write that down.
Prioritize your rest. Yes. And my little, I guess, Anna thing that I've recently been getting into, I'm obsessed with them, are shower caps. And let me tell you why. It has something to do with
One.
rest. You know how, in everything shower, right? Like there's a time and a place. But when we're really busy, especially during the bulk of bridal seasons, I don't always have the time to wash my hair or let it dry. I have fine hair, but I have a lot of it. So what's helped me is just throwing her up in a shower cap.
Because
And
as much as you want to avoid the water in your hair, you still get water in your hair. You need
what
the
kind of
cap.
shower caps are you using?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I don't own a shower cap, so I need
Oh, yes.
even if I'm
I'm
like
like,
trying to
wait.
avoid the water, it's like
Right?
it's
Yes. And
there.
it
Yes.
still like takes some energy to like dodge the water, but for me, it's a form of like cleansing, and like literally I envision like all the funk that I've taken on during the day energetically or emotionally just like really washing away from me and starting fresh. But I don't all the time like to wash my hair. Like there's, but seriously, you asked for a secret and I'm giving it to you.
I love it, and I'm sure
So
there's some really cute ones out there now
there
too.
are such cute, there are so many different cute shower caps. You can have one for every day of the week if you need one. So yeah,
I
do
will
with
be
that what you
investing.
will.
And also, like with short hair, I feel like it's so much easier to style like when it's not super clean, but
Mm-hmm.
and back in college when I used to have a pixie cut, I would actually wear like like a do-rag around my head like when I slept because
Mm-hmm.
it would, like I don't know. So I gotta
Yeah.
get one of those. So now
I had a pixie cut once upon a time, and you were definitely right with that.
yes.
So yeah,
'Cause
so
then it
get
also
yourself a
avoids like
shower
the
cap.
cowlick thing. Yes. Okay, I gotta get one of those. Okay, thank you for the
Mhm.
secrets. Okay, and
You're
then tell us
welcome.
where to find you if we want to be following your journey and all the like the positive vibes that you're sharing.
If
Where to
you
find you.
are on Instagram, you can find me at the Heart-Centered Seamstress. Soon, I will be sharing my 13-page investment guide. This covers everything from bridal alterations and wellness, holistic services that I offer. Wanted to put that out there as a resource for brides that literally gives you the whole package, no strings attached. This is what you can expect. This is how it's going to feel. This is what we're going to do when we're working together. And then I'm also offering for the month of November, No Stress November, as we are calling it, open to all past heart-centered brides, current heart-centered brides, and wedding industry vendors. This is what I really wanted to share is we have to be taking care of ourselves too. We have a lot of work to do. We have to show up on a wedding day. They're not going to change the wedding day if you are not there and you are not well. So I really wanted to offer these yoga nidra guided meditations for vendors as well. So we can relax, have a heart-centered rest of the year. And you can find more information on my website, www.theheartcenteredseamstress.com.
Perfect. We will get that shared. Thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing for your brides and for our community. And I'm so excited to get this episode out. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Nadine. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. And if you're feeling really generous, leave a review. Thanks, everyone.